Hello friends, neighbors, John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome down the Nook. It's Saturday, and today I'm shooting this certainly as much for me as for you guys. Christmas time, my wife gave me this tasting pack. So I've got 3 examples of Old Forester from the Whiskey Row series. So this is the 1897 Bottle and Bond, and then I have the 1910. You normally can't buy this in Canada. So this is the 1910 Old Fine Whiskey. I'll tell you more about how that came to be. And then the anchor here is Old Forester 1920, which is just a fantastic barrel-proof bourbon. So if you have anything from the Whiskey Row series or Old Forester, why don't you pour it around? When we come back, we'll nose, we'll taste. I certainly expect to have a pretty good time here because I will say I like Old Forester products. Now, not all of them. The 86 is a bit of a struggle, but these ones I'm expecting to enjoy, and I'm really focused on the 1910 as I haven't had it in a very long time, and I haven't had a bottle in the house. So the focus of today actually will be 1910. See you in a minute. 3, 4. Thanks for coming back. I opened the bottles off camera, poured them out because they do need to rest a little bit. We're going to start with 1897. So this bottle commemorates the Bottle and Bond Act of 1897, and Brown-Forman talks about how they may have been the first or one of the first to release a Bottle and Bond product. This, of course, then, Bottle and Bond is at 50% or 100 proof. It will be aged a minimum of 4 years, and the whole production will be underseen by a single, I don't know if it's master distiller or distiller supervisor. I can't even remember now what the act says, but 1897, I mean, the Bottle and Bond Act really came out to guarantee the quality of whiskey you were about to enjoy. Instead, it wouldn't be cut, it wouldn't be adulterated, it wouldn't be all kinds of things. So it really is a quality stamp, and I think it certainly deserves a place in something like the Whiskey Row series, which is meant to commemorate and celebrate certain key moments in whiskey history, especially in Old Forester. So this is 1897, nose and taste. It's nice to be in bourbon country. It's got a little bit of nice fruitiness, but right away I got some vanillas, some oaks, a little bit of spicing going on. I'm going to come back to kind of a milder fruit mix in there, which I really haven't, I would say, picked out a lot of with Old Forester. Usually I would say, sugars and brown sugars and whatnot, but let's see what the palate takes me. The nose has got kind of spicy, light vanilla, oak, and a fruit character. On the palate. Cheers. Nice and sprightly on the tongue there too. Spice picks up, a little more hot cinnamons. Now I'm getting some of the cooked brown sugars that I would normally have associated with that. It's coming into its own a little bit. The finish is all some nice oaks, a little bit of char. Not smoke, but just that little bit of charred oak going on in there. Nice dram. The fruits settled into more dark cherry. Not at the first, on the front, it was almost like an apple. I'm like, I don't think I've got that before. But now it's settled into a dark cherry. Light vanilla. It's not overly sweet vanilla and oak. So it's savory with some fruit character and a nice dram. I think I didn't give an overly big score to 1897 last time I had it, but here to warm myself up, it's a pretty good dram. So the excitement of this tasting pack really has hinged on 1910 because I have only had 1910 through generous samples that people have sent to me. The story behind 1910 Old Fine Whiskey is that in October 1910, the distillery had a fire and they had whiskey that was fully matured waiting in a vat to be bottled. Of course, in the fire, they couldn't bottle it because of the fire, so they put it back into new charred oak. So they want to say, and maybe it is, this is the first time of that double barrelling process. Fully matured, emptied, and then put back into fresh charred oak. My understanding with this, and it's released at a lighter proof, 93 proof, or what is that? 47%ish. That this second barreling is lightly toasted and very heavily charred. I think I was on their site and they said, charred till the point of disintegration kind of thing. So maybe they're trying to recreate how the barrels might have been after that fire. So this 1910, a lighter proof. Oh, it's all the same core mash bill, I should say. What do they use? An 18% rye. Shoot, 73 corn. I'll put the right one down here. I usually focus on one number in there, and it's usually rye. So it's 18% rye, I know that. But they're all the same mash bill. 1910. Nose and taste. We're in the same family. I would say it's got some of that vanilla, some oak. Well, this is sweeter on the nose, more fruit. This is a little more dark chocolate. And here, maybe because I've just had this, so the tasting note is in my mind, to be fair, but already more like a dark cherry, dark chocolate, light espresso. It has a sweetness to it though too. Maybe a light nutty sweetness, little light nut. Lately, when I say sweet nut, I'm thinking just an edge of almond. But not overwhelmingly so. I would say chocolates, dark red cherry, and oak. On the palate, 1910. Cheers. It's really good. That is a coating, slightly chewy, a richness to that almost leathered cherry now. It's hard not to already be experiencing the finish, which is dark brown sugar, burnt brown sugar. It's rich. Gotta have another sip. Cheers. Look, that's a wonderful bourbon. Obviously, when you can't get a bourbon, you've had a taste, you really like it, and you can't get it for years, you're probably going to come back and be predisposed to enjoy it. So take my words with a grain of salt. This is really tasty. Overall, the whole profile is a little bit darker, a little bit dark chocolate, dark espresso up front. In the back end, I'm getting those more burnt brown sugars, cooked down cinnamon bun, but really cooked down like almost mom burnt those cinnamon buns. Cheers, mom, if you're ever watching. That kind of thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience, but it is darker, more savory overall, less bright than the 1897. So I am very curious how I'm going to find the 1920 now in direct comparison to the 1910. I really enjoy 1920. 1920, I think, celebrates that they were one of the 6 distilleries that are allowed to continue to produce bourbon or whiskey through Prohibition because of its medicinal properties. And I think they tried to match the higher proof with how whiskey would have been distilled at the time. I think that's the story. But this is 115 proof or about 57%. So it is going to be a bump in alcohol when I come at it nose and palate. But in direct, following 1910, what do I think of 1920 on the nose? Now, it's interesting. I expected a little more ethanol bloom, but it's just a little more hotter, a little more cinnamon. This continues to give me a little more dark chocolate. Yeah, this is a little hotter on the nose. And maybe with the hot cinnamon, though, I'm getting a little more clove. I'm going to go all the way back to the 1897. Interesting how this has just gotten sweeter, Honey Nut Cheerios type thing. Like, it's just really gone sweet for me. This is playing a little closer to the 1910, but a little more heat. I need to get a little taste on this to see how that might change the nose. Cheers. Well, that's good bourbon. That is really good. Also coating like the 1910. Also a bit chewy, oakier, actually. This has a darker oak, a char oak, a burnt cinnamon type. But this is actually giving me a fair amount of fresh oak in the mix. just today, just in this tasting. And totally with the extra oaking and the re-oaking, this has to be oakier. Just talking about my notes, that's what's standing out. Better try another little sip. Okay, with this one coming back to it, now I'm getting, whereas this was a bit of an indescribable fruit settled into a cherry, this was dark cherry the whole time. This one, I could go candy apple, like a red candy apple. So it's got that hard crack, nice sweetness, spicy cinnamon, and then like a juicy red Macintosh type apple. I could go there. Of course, the heat is partly alcohol, but I am getting a significant more cinnamon red heart, spicy, something going on in my palate. And the vanilla and the, not sawdust oak, but the brighter oak is palate, less finish. Whereas this, I need to come back to it from a palate point of view, but was more that char, almost leathered fruit, that kind of oak. I just cracked these. I'm just rediscovering 1910. I've had 1920 is certainly a favorite over the 1897, a bottle I return to probably annually for sure. Put one on the shelf at some point in the year. 1920 is fantastic bourbon. I don't know what I've given it before, but I would say like, 4.25. It's big person bourbon. The 1897 today is doing quite well. It's actually not a big favorite of mine, and it's probably 3 3/4 stars. 1910, it's unfair for me to give a star rating right now because I haven't had enough of it. Both of these I've gone through bottles before. But the 1910, sitting down here, comparing them in this way actually has captured my interest, even in the face of 1920. Always just palate and thoughts, but for me, this is a little richer and a little better. So I am going to be enjoying the 1910. Maybe I'll do a blind later. Why don't you comment below? Have you had these from the Whiskey Row? Have you had others? Specifically between 1910 and 1920, which is your favorite? Today, the 1910's got the lead. Thank you for joining me. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Take care.